Good afternoon, folks. I'm back. I'm back with another America by the Numbers, and this is the Women's Reproductive Rights Edition. And this is a part one because I'm going to try very hard to have another one put together for tomorrow morning before I leave for work. But let's talk about what happened yesterday, because all of the conversation seems to be continually about Donald Trump and his travails as a felon, and will he go to jail, won't he go to jail, whatever. But in the background yesterday, we had the Right to Contraception Act come to the forefront. And the Democrats actually forced this issue. And probably in all seriousness, forced it knowing it wasn't going to pass. But there's a reason for that. You know, unless the voting public is fully aware and sees for themselves just exactly what the GOP is up to, it could be forgotten if they just decided not to do this. But this was a very important thing that happened yesterday because it actually passed the House. It passed the House with the threshold level of 218 votes, which means that a few Republicans crossed the aisle and supported every Democrat who voted for the Right to Contraception Act. This would have guaranteed nationwide access to contraception, regardless of which state you live in. It would have prevented extremist right-wing GOP governors from infringing upon yet another woman's bodily autonomy issue. So here's the rub. In the Senate, the Republicans blocked the bill. In the Senate, the bill failed to get the 60 votes needed for it to get a final vote. And we're going to talk about that because that's relative to what's going to happen in November. But let's talk about who voted against this bill in the Senate, because there were 38 Republicans. And, you know, some of the usual suspects, you know, like John Cornyn, Texas, Tom Cottonmouth Snake is my nickname for him, from Arkansas, Ted Cruz, Chuck Grassley, Josh Hawley, Ron Johnson, Mike Lee, Mark Wayne Mullen, Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, Rick Scott, and Tim Scott. And let me name the women. I want to call them out especially. Marsha Blackburn, Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, Joni Ernst of Iowa, Deb Fisher of Nebraska, Cindy Hyde-Smith of Mississippi, and Cynthia Lummis, a real nutbag, from Wyoming. So let's talk about a couple things here. The first thing I want to state flat out so I can get it out in the open here is any woman, anywhere in this nation that is a Donald Trump supporter is the lowest of the low. Now, I think it's pretty obvious that some of the women who are working for him in the White House, they came from conservative homes, conservative backgrounds, in some cases, conservative colleges. And you can see where their attitudes were formed, all right? Some people like Cassidy Hutchinson couldn't do it anymore. But there are women out there right now supporting him, lawyers and attorneys, like the woman who tried to get the latest ProPublica article blocked on his behalf. Anyone who is working, any woman who is supporting a man who is now a definitely a convicted rapist, a man who has defamed women, a man who has 25 additional women to E. Jean Carroll who are making sexual harassments and sexual assault complaints against him, a man whose, salvo when he goes out looking for women is, you remind me of my daughter. Any woman supporting that kind of skank You have absolutely no character. Okay. You're not a woman that I want to be associated with or that I would even spend time knowing. But let me get to my second point here. The failure to achieve the 60 votes in the Senate, and this is something I harp on continually. We have 52 senators. We have a very slim majority in the Senate, and we're talking about protecting the Senate. We need not to be thinking about protecting the Senate. We need to be thinking about expanding the Senate. And, you know, if the Democratic Party voters, the women in particular, can come out in full force in November, we can expand the Senate. We're going to have to get more than 52, or the Senate Republicans will continue to block bills even if we own the House. So let me explain how that works. We need to own the House and the Senate by a commanding majority. And this is not an impossible task, my friends. This is not. The Republican Party, their followers are not in the majority in this country. So we fail when we don't vote. Look, I said it before and I'll say it again. Donald Trump won in 2016 because 40 million registered Democrats did not bother to vote. You do that now, come November, and I promise you, you will be looking up from the bottom of the barrel for many years because there will not be an election in 2028. So that we'll get them next time around attitude doesn't fly anymore. And even if it did, I want you to think about the damage that Donald Trump did in his first 4 years as president. And think about what he can do with another 4 years. Now that he has an army behind him, 171 election deniers in the House alone. He is not the only problem here. He is the head of the snake. And the head of the snake needs to be cut off. But the rest of the snake needs to go too. We have a Republican Party that is fully anti-democratic, and it is anti-women. And this is just the icing on the cake. And by the way, I'd like to leave you with this thought. The Senate Republicans justified blocking the bill. Do you want to know why? Because they said it's already settled law by the Supreme Court. Well, guess what? So was Roe. 50 years of precedent went down the tubes. Do you think we should trust the Supreme Court now? You know, if you fall for that shit the Republicans in the House and the Senate are giving you, then you need help. You've got to be kidding me. Clarence Thomas already signaled that they should consider other rights that were based on the same premise as Roe: interracial marriage, same-sex marriage, contraception, all based on the privacy issue. For all intents and purposes, they've already destroyed the privacy issue by overturning Roe. All of these are on the chopping block for the Republican Party. Ladies, I warn you. I warn you. You stay home at your own peril. This is war, folks, and it's going to be fought at the polls, and you had best show up. I'll talk to you all later.